I thought I was dealing with financial irresponsibility. Turned out, I was funding my own betrayal. My name is Rachel, and I'm 50 years old. I own a successful chain of beauty salons in Phoenix, Arizona, 3 locations that I built from scratch over 22 years. I understand money. I understand budgets, cash flow, profit margins, and expense management. Numbers are my language, and I speak it fluently. So when the bank statement started showing irregularities I couldn't explain, when our household expenses suddenly jumped by $3,000 a month with no clear reason, when credit cards I'd never maxed out were suddenly at their limits, I noticed. Of course I noticed. What I didn't know yet, what would take me for agonizing months to discover, was that the money disappearing from our accounts wasn't funding my husband Mark's midlife crisis purchases or impulsive spending. It was funding his mistress, a woman named Ashley who I'd never met, never heard of, never suspected existed. And the person transferring my money to support her, the person making sure Ashley's rent was paid, and her shopping trips were funded and her lifestyle was maintained, that wasn't Mark. It was Kristen, my stepdaughter. The girl I'd helped raise since she was 7 years old. The young woman I'd supported through college, through heartbreaks, through every milestone and struggle. The person I trusted completely, loved like my own daughter, never imagined would betray me. But I'm getting ahead of myself, because the discovery didn't happen all at once. It happened in layers, each one more devastating than the last. And the first layer started on a Tuesday morning in March when I opened my business banking statement and saw something that made no sense. Let me back up and tell you who I was before everything fell apart, because you need to understand that I'm not some naive woman who doesn't pay attention to finances, or who blindly trusts everyone around her. I'm the opposite. I'm Rachel Chen. I'm 50 years old. I've been married to Mark for 18 years, his second marriage, my first. When we met, he was a divorced father with a 7-year-old daughter named Kristen. I was 32, running my first salon, focused on building my business and not particularly looking for a relationship. But Mark was persistent in a charming way. He was 40 then, a civil engineer with a stable job, a good father clearly devoted to his daughter. We dated for 2 years before getting married, and I went into the relationship with my eyes open. I knew being a stepmother wouldn't be easy. I knew Kristen might resent me. I knew blending a family required work and patience. What I didn't expect was how much I'd come to love that little girl. Kristen was shy at first, cautious around me, clearly protective of her relationship with her father. But over time we developed our own bond. I took her for mother-daughter spa days. I taught her about skincare and makeup when she hit her teens. I was there for her first heartbreak, her college applications, her graduation. Her biological mother had remarried and moved to California when Kristen was 9. Maintaining minimal contact. I never tried to replace her mother, that wasn't my role. But I tried to be someone Kristen could count on. Someone safe. Someone who cared. By the time Kristen was in her 20s, our relationship had evolved into something that felt genuinely close. Not quite mother-daughter, but something affectionate and real. She'd text me about her problems. We'd meet for coffee. She'd ask my advice about relationships and careers and life decisions. "You're more like a mom to me than my actual mom," she told me once, a few years ago. "I'm so glad Dad married you." I believed her. Why wouldn't I? She seemed sincere. Our relationship seemed real. That's the context you need to understand how thoroughly I was blindsided. How completely I trusted both my husband and my stepdaughter. How the betrayal, when it came, didn't just hurt, it destroyed my entire understanding of my family and my place in it. My business had been thriving. 3 salons in upscale Phoenix neighborhood, Scottsdale, Arcadia, and Central Phoenix. 23 employees total, steady clientele, excellent reputation. I'd worked brutally hard to build it, starting with a small storefront and a dream. Growing through word of mouth and relentless attention to customer service. Mark had always been supportive of my work. He made decent money as a civil engineer, enough to contribute equally to our household expenses. We kept our finances somewhat separate. I had my business accounts, he had his salary, and we had joint accounts for household expenses and savings. It was a system that worked, or at least it had worked for 18 years. The first sign that something was wrong came in early March. I was reviewing our household checking account, the joint account we both contributed to for mortgage, utilities, groceries, and shared expenses. We each deposited $3,000 a month into it, which had always been more than enough. But the balance was low, unusually low, and there were transactions I didn't recognize. Venmo transfers, $500 here, $300 there, small enough individually that they might not be noticed, but adding up over months to significant amounts. I checked the previous 3 months. The pattern was consistent. Multiple Venmo transfers, usually to the same account. totaling about $2,000 to $2,500 per month. I called Mark that evening. He was working late or so, he said. Hey, honey, quick question. I'm looking at the checking account and seeing a bunch of Venmo transfers I don't recognize. Do you know what those are for? There was a pause. Just a beat too long. Oh, those? Yeah. I've been helping out a coworker who's going through some financial difficulties. Just lending him some money until he gets back on his feet. $2,000 a month? For how long? A few months. It's temporary. He's having a rough time. It was plausible. Mark was generous, sometimes to a fault. He'd loaned money to friends before. And $2,000 a month, while significant, wasn't catastrophic for our household budget, okay? I just wanted to make sure it wasn't fraud or something. Maybe give me a heads up next time? I was worried when I saw the account so low. Sorry, babe. I should have mentioned it. Won't happen again. The conversation ended. I felt slightly reassured but still vaguely unsettled. Something about Mark's tone, about that pause before he answered, didn't sit quite right. But I pushed the feeling down. Told myself I was being paranoid. Mark had never given me reason not to trust him. We'd had a solid marriage. No major issues. Normal ups and downs, but nothing serious. I let it go. That was my first mistake. Over the next few weeks, I started noticing other things. Small things that individually meant nothing but collectively formed a pattern I couldn't ignore. Mark was on his phone constantly. Not unusual in itself, everyone's on their phones. But he'd become protective of it. Would angle the screen away when I walked by. Would take calls in another room. Would silence notifications quickly before I could see them. He was working late more often. Coming home at 8, 9, sometimes 10 at night. Always with plausible explanations: big project, difficult client, deadline pressure. His job did require occasional overtime, so again, it seemed reasonable. But the frequency had increased, and he seemed distracted when he was home. Present physically but absent mentally. Our sex life, which had never been particularly passionate, but had been consistent and comfortable, had dropped off dramatically. He was always too tired, too stressed, not in the mood. And the spending continued. I checked the account weekly now, watching the Venmo transfers accumulate. Some months it was $3,000. One month it hit $4,000. I brought it up again in April. Mark, I'm concerned about these transfers. They're really adding up. How much longer is your coworker going to need help? I don't know, Rachel. He's dealing with some serious stuff. I can't just cut him off. I'm not saying cut him off. I'm saying maybe we need to set some limits. We can't sustain this level of lending indefinitely. It's my money. I'm contributing to the account, and I'm choosing to help someone who needs it. I don't understand why you're making this a big deal. His defensiveness surprised me. Mark wasn't usually combative. He was easygoing, non-confrontational, the peacekeeper in conflicts. I'm not making it a big deal. I'm just trying to understand our financial situation. Well, maybe stop monitoring every dollar I spend. I'm an adult. I can make my own financial decisions. The conversation ended badly. We didn't fight often, and when we did, it was usually resolved quickly with apologies and compromises. But this time, Mark stayed angry, distant, cold, and the transfers continued. That's when I started really investigating. Not because I suspected infidelity, that honestly hadn't occurred to me yet, but because I needed to understand what was happening to our money. As a business owner, unexplained cash flow issues made me anxious. I needed answers. I pulled up our credit card statements, both our personal cards and the cards attached to our joint account. I went through them line by line, noting charges, looking for patterns. What I found was interesting. Mark's personal credit card, the one he paid from his own salary account, showed normal, modest spending. Gas, lunches, occasional purchases. Nothing unusual. But our joint credit cards, the ones we both had access to, showed significant charges I didn't recognize. High-end restaurants I'd never been to. Shopping at stores I didn't frequent. Services I didn't use. $500 at Nordstrom. $300 at Sephora. $200 at a nail salon that wasn't one of mine. Charges for hair appointments, spa services, clothing, accessories. Women's purchases. But not mine. I felt cold. Literally cold, like my body temperature had dropped 10 degrees. There was another woman. There had to be. These charges, the pattern was unmistakable. Someone was using our joint credit card to fund a lifestyle. A woman's lifestyle. But the purchases weren't even the most disturbing part. What really made my stomach turn was realizing that some of the charges were at my own salons. Someone had used our joint credit card to pay for services at my businesses. Multiple times. Haircuts, color, treatments. Hundreds of dollars over several months. Mark's mistress, because that's what she had to be, was getting her hair done at my salons. Using my money. while I worked in the same buildings, managing my staff, taking care of clients. The audacity of it was breathtaking. I sat in my home office, surrounded by bank statements and credit card bills, and tried to breathe through the panic and rage rising in my chest. My husband was cheating on me. That much was clear. And whoever she was bold enough, shameless enough, to use my own money to get her hair done at my own businesses. I wanted to confront Mark immediately, march into wherever he was and demand the truth. But something stopped me. Some instinct for self-preservation. Some business owner pragmatism that said I needed more information before I showed my hand. Because if I confronted him now with partial information, he'd just lie, deny, gaslight me into thinking I was crazy or paranoid. I needed concrete proof, undeniable evidence. I needed to know exactly what I was dealing with before I blew up my marriage. So I kept quiet, watched, waited, gathered evidence, and I called Kristen. My stepdaughter had always been someone I could talk to, someone I trusted. I thought maybe she'd notice something, or maybe she could help me figure out what was happening without tipping off Mark. We met for coffee at our usual place, a cafe in Scottsdale not far from my main salon. Kristen looked good, 26 now, working in marketing for a tech company, living in a nice apartment in Tempe. She'd grown into a confident young woman, stylish and put together. "Thanks for meeting me," I said as we sat down with our lattes. "Of course. I always have time for you. What's going on?" I hesitated. How much should I share? I didn't want to poison her relationship with her father if I was wrong, but I needed to know if she'd seen anything. "I'm worried about your dad. He's been acting strange lately. Distant. Working late all the time. I'm concerned something's bothering him." Kristen's expression was sympathetic but not surprised. "He does seem stressed lately. Work stuff, probably. You know how he gets when there's a big project." "Yeah, maybe. Has he said anything to you? About problems at work or anything else?" "Not really. We haven't talked much lately. We're both so busy, right?" "Of course." We chatted for another 30 minutes about her job, her life, normal things. She seemed perfectly normal, friendly, warm, concerned about me in the way she always had been. I left that coffee date feeling slightly reassured. If something major was happening, surely Kristen would have noticed. Surely she would have said something. I had no idea that she already knew everything. That she wasn't just aware of her father's affair, she was actively facilitating it. But I wouldn't learn that for another 6 weeks. If you're watching this on Lindsay Stories, I need you to understand something about betrayal. It doesn't usually happen all at once. It happens in layers, each discovery worse than the last. Each revelation forcing you to reconsider everything you thought you knew. The first layer was realizing my husband was cheating. That hurt. That was devastating. But it was almost normal in a horrible way. Infidelity happens. Marriages end. People survive it. The second layer was discovering the extent of the financial betrayal. Not just the affair, but the systematic use of my money to fund it. That was worse. That added insult to injury in ways that made the betrayal feel more calculated, more cruel. But the third layer, the discovery of who was actually behind the money transfers, who was making it all possible, that's what broke me completely. That discovery came in late May, almost 3 months after I'd first noticed the irregular spending. I'd been tracking the Venmo transfers, trying to figure out who was receiving the money. The account name on Venmo was generic, just initials, no photo, no identifying information. I tried searching the phone number associated with it, but came up empty. So I did something I'm not proud of, something that violated my husband's privacy. But by that point, I was past caring about privacy. I needed the truth. I waited until Mark was in the shower one morning, grabbed his phone off the nightstand. I knew his passcode, he'd never hidden it from me, and we'd always had an open phone policy in our marriage. Or so I thought. I opened his texts, started scrolling. Most of it was mundane. Work conversations, exchanges with friends, nothing suspicious. But then I found a thread with a contact saved as A. Just the letter A. No name, no context. I opened it, started reading from the beginning. The messages went back 8 months. 8 months of daily communication. Affectionate messages, sexual messages, planning meetups, and discussing logistics. Mark was definitely having an affair. That much was confirmed beyond any doubt. But the messages also referenced money. Lots of discussions about money. "Did you get the transfer?" "Yes, thank you, baby. You're so good to me. Anything for you? I wish I could pay you back someday. Don't worry about it. I want to take care of you." And then, more recently, Kay came through again. "She's amazing. I know. I'm so grateful she's helping us. She really loves you. She does. I'm lucky to have her, Kay." Someone whose name started with K was sending money to this woman. Someone Mark and his mistress were grateful to. Someone who really loved the mistress. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. I kept scrolling, looking for more context. And then I found it. A message from just 2 weeks earlier. Kay and I are going shopping tomorrow. She's so sweet, always taking care of me. I'm glad we become friends. In Mark's response, she really likes you. I think she's happy I'm happy. Even if the situation is complicated. Kay. Shopping together. Friends. Kristen. My stepdaughter was friends with my husband's mistress. Was giving her money. Was taking care of her. The phone slipped from my hands onto the bed. I sat there, frozen, trying to process what I'd just read. Kristen knew. She'd known for months. Not only known but participated. Enabled. Facilitated. She was using my money that ultimately came from my business, from my work to fund her father's affair. And she become friends with the woman he was cheating on me with. All while maintaining her relationship with me. Having coffee with me. Texting me about her life. Acting like everything was normal. The shower turned off. I heard Mark moving around in the bathroom. I picked up his phone, closed the messages, put it back on the nightstand, walked out of the bedroom on autopilot, made it to my home office, closed the door, sat down at my desk, and started planning what I would do next. Because this wasn't just a marriage problem anymore. This wasn't just infidelity that could be addressed through counseling or forgiveness or divorce. This was financial fraud. This was theft. This was to people I loved and trusted systematically stealing from me to fund a relationship. That destroyed mine. And I was going to make sure they both understood exactly what they'd done. But first, I needed more evidence. More details. A complete picture of the financial betrayal. I spent the next week going through every transaction I could access. I created spreadsheets. I tracked patterns. I documented everything. The Venmo transfers from our joint account weren't coming directly from Mark. They were coming from Kristen's account. She was acting as the intermediary, withdrawing money from our joint account through legitimate-looking transfers to herself, then sending it to Ashley through Venmo. The credit card charges were more straightforward. Ashley, I now knew her name from the text messages, had been given access to one of our joint credit cards. Or more likely, Kristen had been using it and buying things for Ashley. Over the course of 8 months, approximately $32,000 of my money had been transferred to support my husband's mistress. $32,000. For rent, for shopping, for entertainment, for the lifestyle of a woman who was sleeping with my husband. And my stepdaughter had made it all possible. I gathered all the evidence. Printed documents. Screenshots of the text messages I'd photographed with my own phone. Bank statements with the suspicious transactions highlighted. Credit card bills with the purchases circled. I organized it all into a folder. Methodical. Professional. The same way I'd organized documents for a business dispute. Because that's what this was. A business dispute. A fraud case. Not just a broken heart, though that was certainly part of it. And then I scheduled 2 meetings. One with Mark. One with Kristen. I started with Kristen. Called her on a Thursday afternoon. Hey, can we meet for coffee tomorrow? I need to talk to you about something. Sure. Is everything okay? We'll talk tomorrow. We met at the same cafe where we'd had our conversation in April. She arrived looking cheerful, stylish as always, completely unaware of what was coming. We ordered our drinks. Sat down at a corner table. Made small talk for exactly 60 seconds. Then I opened my folder and slid it across the table to her. I need you to explain these. She looked down at the documents. I watched her face carefully. Watched the moment she realized what she was looking at. Her expression went from confusion to shock to something that looked almost like relief. Rachel, I can explain. Please do. Explain how you've been stealing my money for 8 months to give to your father's mistress. Explain how you became friends with the woman he's cheating on me with. Explain how you looked me in the eye over and over while actively betraying me. Her hands were shaking. It's not like that. You don't understand. Then help me understand. Because from where I'm sitting, you've stolen $32,000 from me to fund an affair that's destroying my marriage. What am I misunderstanding? I didn't steal anything. The money came from the joint account. Dad has access to it too. The joint account that I contribute to. That my business success funds. You took money that was partly mine and gave it to his mistress without my knowledge or consent. That's theft. Dad was going to tell you. He just needed time. 8 months? He needed 8 months to find the time to tell me he was having an affair? It's complicated. He loves you. He does. But Ashley, she needed help. She was in a bad situation. Dad wanted to help her, and I understood that. I wanted to help too. You wanted to help your father's mistress? The woman he's cheating on me with? Kristen looked away. You don't understand their relationship. It's not about you. Ashley isn't trying to replace you. She's someone Dad connected with. Someone who makes him happy. And I don't make him happy. That's not what I meant. You're his wife. You have your life and your business and your success. Ashley has nothing. She needed help. So I helped her. With my money. It's Dad's money too. Did you ever think about telling me? Warning me? Giving me the choice about whether I wanted my money supporting my husband's affair? She finally met my eyes. Would you have said yes? Of course not. Exactly. So what would have been the point? You'd have just made everything harder for Dad and Ashley. I was trying to help them be happy. The logic was so twisted, so completely devoid of consideration for me, that I almost couldn't process it. Kristen, I helped raise you. I've been there for you for 19 years. I supported you financially, emotionally, in every way. And you repay me by stealing from me to help the woman who's destroying my marriage. I didn't think of it as stealing. I thought of it as helping Dad be happy. Don't you want him to be happy? Not at the expense of my dignity and my marriage and my money. Kristen, you've betrayed me in every possible way. You've lied to me. You've stolen from me. You've befriended the woman he's cheating with. How could you think any of that was okay? She was crying now. I didn't want to hurt you. Dad was so miserable. He said things with you had become stale. That you were always working and didn't have time for him. That he felt alone in his own marriage. Ashley makes him feel alive again. I wanted him to be happy. So you sacrificed me. The woman who's been more of a mother to you than your actual mother. You threw me away so your father could be happy with his mistress. I didn't throw you away. I still care about you. You have an interesting way of showing it. I closed the folder. Stood up. Looked down at this young woman I loved like a daughter and didn't recognize anymore. I want you to understand something, Kristen. What you did isn't just morally wrong. It's legally wrong. You stole $32,000 from me. That's felony theft. I could press charges. Her face went pale. You wouldn't. I haven't decided yet. But know that I could. Know that the evidence is documented and undeniable. Know that your helping your father could result in criminal charges. Rachel, please, I'm not finished. You're also cut off financially. Any money I've given you, any support I've provided, any help with rent or bills or anything that ends today. You chose your father's happiness over basic decency. Live with that choice. I walked out of the cafe, leaving her crying at the table, and felt absolutely nothing. No regret. No guilt. Just a cold, hollow space where my love for her used to be. That evening, I confronted Mark. He came home at his usual late time, around 8:30. I was sitting in our living room, the folder of evidence on the coffee table in front of me. We need to talk, I said. He saw the folder, saw my face, and knew. Rachel, let me explain. You have 10 minutes. Explain. He sat down across from me, looked at the folder like it might bite him. I never meant for this to happen. It developed. Ashley and I met at a work conference. We talked. Connected. I know it's wrong. I know I shouldn't have pursued it. But I felt something I hadn't felt in years. How long? 8 months. And you've been using my money to support her the entire time? It wasn't supposed to be your money. I was transferring from the joint account. I didn't think of it as yours specifically. Because I'm your wife and what's mine is yours? Is that the logic you're using? I knew you wouldn't agree to help her if I asked directly. So I found another way. You enlisted your daughter to steal from me. I didn't ask Kristen to do anything. She volunteered. She saw how happy Ashley made me and wanted to help. Did you know they became friends? That Kristen has been shopping with your mistress, spending time with her, bonding with the woman you're cheating with. He looked uncomfortable. I knew they'd met a few times. I thought it was nice that they got along. Nice? You thought it was nice that your daughter befriended your mistress? While lying to your wife. Rachel, I know you're angry. You have every right to be. But I need you to understand my relationship with Ashley doesn't diminish what I have with you. You're my wife. I'm not leaving you for her. What? I want to stay married to you. I love you. Ashley is something else. Something separate. Can't we find a way to make this work where everyone's needs are met? I stared at him, genuinely unable to process what he was saying. You want to stay married to me while continuing to see your mistress? And you want me to be okay with that? People have different arrangements. It doesn't have to be traditional. I can love you both. And I'm supposed to continue funding her lifestyle while sharing my husband with her. You make it sound so transactional. It's not about money. It's about connection and happiness. Mark, you and your daughter stole $32,000 from me to fund your affair. It is absolutely about money, along with being about betrayal and lies and a complete absence of respect for me. What do you want me to do? End it with Ashley? I will if that's what you need. But I want you to know it will hurt me. I care about her. I want you to get out of my house. Rachel, this isn't a negotiation. You betrayed me. Your daughter betrayed me. You both stole from me. I want you out of this house tonight. This is my house too. We're married. You can't just kick me out. Actually, I can. The house is in my name only. I bought it before we got married. You're a guest here, and I'm withdrawing my invitation. That wasn't entirely true. Legally, we lived here as a married couple long enough that he probably had some rights. But he didn't know that, and his face told me the bluff worked. Where am I supposed to go? I don't care. Stay with Ashley. Stay with Kristen. Figure it out. But you're not staying here. He left that night, packed a bag with the essentials, tried multiple times to continue the conversation, to convince me we could work through this. I didn't engage, just watched him pack and waited for him to leave. After he was gone, I sat in the silence of my house and cried for the first time since discovering everything. Not gentle tears, but huge, racking sobs that came from somewhere deep and damaged inside me. I'd lost my husband to an affair. I'd lost my stepdaughter to betrayal. I'd lost $32,000 and, more importantly, my sense of safety and trust in my own family. Everything I believed about my marriage and my relationships had been a lie. Or at least, it had all been contingent, conditional, subject to change when something or someone better came along. The next few weeks were a blur of practical necessities. I hired a divorce attorney, filed papers, changed locks, separated all our financial accounts. I also filed a police report about the theft. My attorney advised against it, said it would complicate the divorce, make everything messier. But I did it anyway, because what Kristen had done was criminal, and I wanted that documented. The police took my report, investigated, ultimately decided not to press charges, said it was too complicated with the family relationships and the joint account situation. But it was on record, documented. Real. Mark hired his own attorney, fought the divorce, claimed he was entitled to half of everything including my business. That's when I learned something interesting. Because I'd owned the business before we married and because I kept it entirely separate financially, he had no claim to it. The business was mine, completely and solely mine. The house was more complicated. I'd bought it before marriage, but we'd lived in it together for 18 years. He argued he contributed to its maintenance and upkeep and therefore had some ownership stake. My attorney argued that any contributions he'd made were offset by his theft of marital assets to support his mistress. It took 7 months, but eventually we reached a settlement. He got nothing from my business. I kept the house. We split our joint savings, which after I deducted the $32,000 he'd stolen, left him with very little. He tried to protest, argued the calculation wasn't fair, but I had documentation. Proof. Evidence that he and Kristen had systematically stolen from me. In the end, he accepted the settlement, probably because his attorney told him that going to trial would mean all of this becoming public record, and he didn't want that. Kristen tried to reach out multiple times during those months. Text, emails, voicemails, all saying essentially the same thing. She was sorry. She hadn't understood how much she was hurting me. She wanted to make things right. I didn't respond. Didn't even read the messages after the first few. I'd said everything I needed to say in that cafe. There was nothing left to discuss. My friends rallied around me. My staff at the salons were supportive without being invasive. My business continued thriving. In fact, it grew. I threw myself into work, into expansion, into building something that was entirely mine and couldn't be taken from me by people I trusted. I'm 51 now. The divorce was finalized 8 months ago. I'm legally single, financially stable, and emotionally recovering. I still think about Kristen sometimes. Wonder if she genuinely didn't understand how wrong her actions were, or if she knew and just didn't care. Wonder if Mark manipulated her into helping him, or if she volunteered willingly. I'll never know. Because I'll never ask. Because Kristen is dead to me in every way that matters. Some betrayals are too fundamental to forgive. Some violations of trust are too complete to repair. What she did befriending my husband's mistress, using my money to fund their relationship, lying to me for months while actively participating in my betrayal, that's not something you come back from. The relationship we had for 19 years is gone, erased by her choices. And I've made peace with that loss. If you're still watching this on Lindsay Stories, I want you to understand something about financial infidelity. It's not just about the money. It's about the violation of trust, the systematic deception, the calculated betrayal that happens over time when someone steals from you to fund something that hurts you. They're not just taking your money. They're telling you that your dignity, your feelings, your well-being matter less than whatever they're using your money for. Mark and Kristen both told me, through their actions, that my money was more important to them than my pain. That funding an affair mattered more than preserving our family. That their happiness justified any amount of lying and stealing and betraying. And I had to accept that truth and act accordingly. I haven't spoken to Mark since the divorce was finalized. I know through mutual acquaintances that his relationship with Ashley ended shortly after I kicked him out. Apparently, she wasn't that interested in him once he didn't have access to my money anymore. Kristen still lives in Phoenix, still works in marketing, still exists in the same city as me, though we'll never cross paths if I can help it. And I'm rebuilding, creating a life that's mine alone, finding joy in my work, my friends, my independence. I thought I was dealing with excessive spending. Turned out I was funding my own betrayal. But I survived it, fought back, took control of my finances and my life. And I'm here to tell you that survival is possible even after the worst betrayals. Share this story. Learn from my mistakes. Protect yourselves financially. Never give unlimited access to joint accounts without monitoring them. Watch for red flags. Trust your instincts when something feels wrong. And know that if the worst happens, if you discover the people you love have been stealing from you, there are legal remedies. There are ways to fight back. There are paths to recovery. You don't have to accept betrayal quietly. You don't have to prioritize keeping the peace over protecting yourself. I didn't. And I'm better for it. My name is Rachel. I'm 51 years old. My husband and stepdaughter stole from me to fund his affair. But I'm still here. Still successful. Still building a life that's entirely mine. And that's everything. That's my story. That's my warning. That's my message of survival and strength. Thank you for listening. Thank you for witnessing. Thank you for being part of the community that makes sharing these stories possible. Subscribe to Lindsay Stories. Share with people who need to hear it. Comment with your own experiences. Because silence protects the people who hurt us. And we're done being silent. That's everything. What I haven't fully shared yet, what I've been building toward, is that the discovery of the betrayal wasn't the end of the story. It was just the beginning of understanding exactly how deep the deception went, and how calculated the entire scheme had been. 2 weeks after I kicked Mark out, I was going through more financial records, not just our joint accounts, but also credit card statements I'd overlooked initially, trying to build the most complete picture possible for my attorney. That's when I discovered something that made everything worse. The affair and the financial theft had been going on for longer than 8 months. Much longer. I found credit card statements from 18 months earlier showing charges at restaurants and hotels I didn't recognize. Venmo records from my own accounts I thought only I had access to showing transfers. I'd never authorized dating back almost 2 years. Someone had been accessing my business accounts, my personal savings. Not just the joint household money, but money that was solely mine. And the only person besides me who had ever been given temporary access to those accounts, who I trusted to help with bookkeeping when I'd been overwhelmed with opening my third salon location, was Kristen. She kept the access. 4 years. Used it occasionally, carefully, in ways small enough that I wouldn't notice. Taking $500 here, $1,000 there. Transferring it through multiple accounts to hide the origin, before it eventually made its way to Ashley. This wasn't just a daughter helping her father hide an affair that started 8 months ago. This was a long-term, coordinated theft scheme that predated the affair or possibly even enabled it. Kristen had been stealing from me for at least 2 years, possibly longer. The total, when I finally calculated it all, every unauthorized transfer, every suspicious charge, every missing dollar I could trace, came to $87,000. $87,000, gone, stolen, used to fund a relationship that destroyed mine. I called my attorney immediately, gave her the new information. She brought in a forensic accountant, who spent 3 weeks tracing every transaction, building an irrefutable case. This changes everything, my attorney said during an emergency meeting. This isn't just marital misconduct anymore. This is embezzlement, wire fraud, identity theft. These are serious criminal charges. What are my options? We can file criminal charges against both of them. The evidence is overwhelming. Kristen especially, she's looking at potential felony convictions, possibly years in prison if prosecuted to the fullest extent. I sat with that information, thought about what it would mean. Kristen in prison. Mark with a criminal record. My family drama becoming a legal case, a matter of public record, something everyone would know about. Part of me wanted it. Wanted them to face consequences that matched the severity of their betrayal. Wanted justice in the form of handcuffs and court dates and guilty verdicts. But another part of me, the part that had loved them both despite everything, hesitated. What if we use the threat of criminal charges as leverage? I asked. Make them understand how serious this is, how much trouble they're in, and use that to get a better settlement without actually going through criminal prosecution. My attorney looked at me with something like respect. That's actually the smart play. Criminal cases are uncertain, time-consuming, and emotionally draining. But the threat of criminal charges backed by solid evidence, that's powerful leverage. We drafted a letter, detailed every crime they committed, listed the evidence we had, outlined the potential penalties, multiple felony charges, years in prison, permanent criminal records that would destroy their careers and futures. And then we offered an alternative. Mark would sign over any claim to marital assets without contest. Kristen would sign a promissory note agreeing to pay back the $87,000 over time. Both of them would sign non-disclosure agreements, preventing them from discussing any of this publicly or disparaging me in any way. In exchange, I wouldn't press criminal charges. The letter was delivered by messenger to both of them on the same day. Mark's attorney called within 6 hours. My client will accept your terms. Kristen took longer. 3 days of silence. Then her attorney called. My client would like to negotiate the repayment terms. There's nothing to negotiate, my attorney replied. She stole $87,000. She either agrees to pay it back over 10 years with interest, or we pursue criminal charges. Those are the only options. Another day of silence. Then, she'll sign. The divorce settlement was finalized within a month after that. Mark signed every document my attorney put in front of him without protest. I got everything: the house, my business completely uncontested, our retirement accounts, everything. He walked away with his personal belongings and the knowledge that he'd avoided federal prison. Kristen signed the promissory note, $870 a month for 10 years, plus 3% interest. She'd be paying me back until she was 36 years old, a constant reminder of what she'd done. I set up the automatic payments to go directly into a separate account. Money I'd never touched, never spent. Just let it accumulate as proof that actions have consequences, that theft isn't forgiven just because you're family. The divorce was finalized on a cold January morning. I went to the courthouse alone, didn't want anyone's pity or support, just wanted it done. Walking out of that building as a legally single woman felt like emerging from underwater. Like I could finally breathe after months of suffocating. I was free, financially protected, legally separated from the people who betrayed me. But freedom came with its own challenges. Challenges I hadn't anticipated during the fight to get here. The first few months after the divorce were strangely difficult. I'd expected relief, maybe even happiness. Instead, I felt hollow. Like I'd won the battle but couldn't quite figure out what I won. My days were full. The salons kept me busy, my staff needed management, my clients needed attention. But my evenings were empty. Coming home to a silent house that had once held a family, eating dinner alone, going to bed without anyone to say goodnight to. I hadn't realized how much of my identity had been wrapped up in being Mark's wife, in being Kristen's stepmother, in having a family, even if that family had been fundamentally dysfunctional. Now I was just Rachel, 51 years old, successful, independent. Alone. I started therapy in March. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, who specialized in trauma recovery and rebuilding after betrayal. Twice a week at first, then once a week as I stabilized. You're grieving multiple losses simultaneously, Dr. Mitchell explained during one of our early sessions. Your marriage, your relationship with your stepdaughter, your sense of safety and trust, your identity as a wife and stepmother. That's complicated grief, and it takes time to process. I should be relieved. They were terrible to me. Why do I miss them? Because humans are complex. We can logically understand that someone hurt us while still emotionally missing the relationship we thought we had. You're not missing Mark and Kristen as they actually were. You're missing who you thought they were, who you wanted them to be. That distinction helped. I wasn't weak or stupid for feeling sad sometimes. I was just human, grieving the loss of a life I thought was real. The therapy helped me understand some other things too. Like how I'd ignored red flags because I wanted to believe in my family. How I'd prioritized keeping the peace over protecting myself. How I'd made myself small and accommodating in hopes that being easy to live with would make them love me more. You can't earn love through self-sacrifice, Dr. Mitchell said. Real love doesn't require you to diminish yourself. The right people will value you because of who you are, not because of what you do for them. I joined a support group for people who'd experienced financial betrayal by family members. It met every Thursday evening at a community center in Scottsdale. 8 to 12 people typically, all with variations of the same story: family members who had stolen, embezzled, or manipulated them financially. Their stories were depressingly familiar. The trust betrayed, the elaborate lies, the justifications that made the theft seem reasonable, the isolation that came after discovering the truth. My brother stole my inheritance, one woman shared, used my identity to take out loans in my name, left me with $60,000 in debt, and my parents sided with him, said I was being vindictive by pressing charges. My ex-husband emptied our accounts and fled to Mexico, another man said. I found out when I tried to buy groceries, and my debit card was declined. He planned it for months, moving money bit by bit where I wouldn't notice until it was too late. Each story reminded me that I wasn't alone. That financial betrayal by trusted people was far more common than anyone wanted to admit. That the shame we felt was imposed by people who wanted us to stay silent. Through the group, I learned about resources I didn't know existed. Victims' compensation funds, legal aid for fraud cases, support organizations for people recovering from financial crimes. And I learned that recovery was possible. That people did rebuild after devastating betrayals. That life could be good again, even if it was different from what we planned. 6 months after the divorce, I made a decision that surprised everyone, including myself. I decided to expand my business, to open a fourth salon location in an upscale area of Paradise Valley. My accountant thought I was crazy. "Rachel, you just went through an expensive divorce. Maybe now isn't the time for major investments." But I disagreed. Now was exactly the time. Because I needed to prove to myself that I could still build something. That betrayal hadn't broken my ability to trust my own judgment and take calculated risks. I secured the financing, found the perfect location, hired a designer to create a space that was gorgeous and welcoming and completely unlike my other salons. This one would be focused on high-end services, luxury treatments, exclusive clientele. And I threw myself into the project with the same energy I'd once put into trying to save my marriage. Except this time, I was building something that was entirely mine, that couldn't be taken or destroyed by other people's choices. The salon opened in September, 10 months after my divorce was finalized. The grand opening was packed. Existing clients from my other locations, new customers drawn by the marketing, local business owners, friends who wanted to support me. Kristen wasn't there. Mark wasn't there. And their absence didn't hurt the way I'd expected. It was just empty space. Places where people used to be who no longer existed in my life. My friend Jennifer, who'd been my rock through the entire ordeal, made a toast at the opening party. To Rachel, who took the worst year of her life and turned it into fuel for building something beautiful. You're an inspiration to everyone who's been knocked down and had to figure out how to get back up. Everyone raised their glasses, and I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: pride. Not in having survived, though that mattered, but in having thrived despite everything. The new salon was successful from day one. Within 3 months, we were booked solid with waiting lists for some of our most popular stylists. The revenue exceeded my projections. The buzz in Phoenix's beauty and wellness community was incredible. I turned my pain into something productive, channeled my anger into ambition, used the energy I'd once put into trying to fix a broken marriage into building a business empire. A year after the divorce, I ran into someone unexpectedly: Ashley. My ex-husband's mistress, the woman my money had supported, whose lifestyle my theft had funded. It was at a restaurant in Old Town Scottsdale. I was having dinner with Jennifer and another friend. Ashley was there with a group of women, laughing, drinking wine, looking carefree and happy. Our eyes met across the restaurant. She recognized me. I could see it in her face. For a moment, I thought she might come over, say something, apologize, justify. I don't know. But she looked away quickly, turned back to her friends, pretended she hadn't seen me, and I felt nothing. No anger. No hurt. No curiosity about her life, or whether she was still with Mark. She wasn't tied her through mutual acquaintances that their relationship had ended shortly after the money stopped. She was just a stranger, someone who'd been a bit player in the worst chapter of my life, but who had no power over me now. I turned back to my friends, continued our conversation, enjoyed my meal, and forgot about her before dessert arrived. That's when I knew I'd really healed. When the person who'd once represented my deepest humiliation could be in the same room as me, and I felt only indifference. Kristen tried to reach out again on my 52nd birthday. A text message that said, "Happy birthday. I know you don't want to hear from me, but I think about you all the time. I'm so sorry for everything. I hope you're doing well." I looked at the message, thought about responding, thought about all the things I could say. Then I deleted it without replying, because some apologies are too little, too late, and I had nothing left to say to her. My life now, at 52, looks nothing like I imagined it would at this age. I thought I'd be celebrating a long marriage, watching my stepdaughter build her own family, growing old with someone who'd chosen me decades earlier. Instead, I'm single. My family has chosen friends who've proven themselves, employees who've become like daughters, a community of women I've built through my business. It's not what I planned, but it's good. Maybe even better than what I had, though that's hard to admit without feeling like I'm diminishing the pain of getting here. I date occasionally. Nothing serious. Men my own age who've been through their own relationship trauma and understand that trust is earned slowly. I'm not in a hurry to remarry or even commit. I'm learning to be happy alone first. The business continues growing. I'm considering a 5th location. Maybe even franchising eventually, turning my local success into something bigger. And I'm financially secure in ways I never was when I was married. Because now, no one has access to my money but me. No one can steal from me or manipulate me or use my success to fund their betrayals. I protect myself. I trust cautiously. I verify everything. And I refuse to feel bad about any of that. The $870 from Kristen arrives in my account every month like clockwork. 9 years and 3 months left on the payment plan. I watch the balance in that account grow, a concrete reminder that actions have consequences. Sometimes I imagine what I'll do with that money when the debt is fully paid. Donate it to a charity for fraud victims? Take a trip around the world? Buy something extravagant and unnecessary? I don't know yet, but I have 9 years to decide. If you're still watching this on Lindsay Stories, if you stayed with me through this entire story, I want you to understand something crucial. Betrayal by people you love doesn't have to destroy you permanently. It will hurt. It will change you. You'll never be quite as trusting, or as naive, or as willing to overlook red flags as you were before. But you can survive. You can rebuild. You can create a life that's better than the one that was taken from you, even if it's different from what you planned. I thought my life was over when I discovered what Mark and Kristen had done. I thought the betrayal was so fundamental that I'd never recover from it. I was wrong. The life I had ended. But I built a new one. A better one. One where I'm not taken advantage of. Where my success benefits me and people I choose. Where my trust has to be earned and can be revoked. Share this story with anyone who's been financially betrayed by family. With anyone who's discovered that the people they loved were stealing from them. With anyone who's trying to figure out how to rebuild after their entire world fell apart. Tell them recovery is possible. Tell them they deserve justice. Tell them they're not stupid or weak for having trusted the wrong people. And tell them that protecting yourself, setting boundaries, cutting off people who hurt you, those aren't cruel acts. Those are survival skills. I learned that lesson the hard way. At 52, I'm finally living by it. My name is Rachel. I'm 52 years old. My husband and stepdaughter stole $87,000 from me to fund his affair with a woman who became my stepdaughter's friend. But I survived. I fought back. I built something better. And if I can do it, so can you? That's everything. Subscribe to Lindsay Stories. Share this with people who need it. Comment with your own stories. Because silence protects the people who hurt us. And we're done being silent. That's everything. There's one more part of the story I haven't shared yet. A final chapter that happened just 3 months ago, and that changed how I understood everything that had happened. I was at my Paradise Valley salon, doing what I loved, consulting with a new client about color options, talking through what would work with her skin tone and lifestyle. The salon was busy, music playing, stylists chatting with clients, the comfortable hum of a successful business day. And then I saw her. Through the window, walking past on the sidewalk. Kristen. She stopped, looked and saw me. For a moment, we just stared at each other through the glass. 3 years since our last conversation. 3 years of monthly payments arriving in my account. 3 years of silence. 3 years of her being dead to me in every way except financially. She didn't come in. Just stood there on the sidewalk, looking like she wanted to say something but couldn't figure out how. Or maybe she knew there was nothing to say that would matter. I could have looked away. Gone back to my client consultation. Pretended I hadn't seen her. But something made me excuse myself, tell my client I'd be right back, and walk to the front door. I stepped outside. We stood on the sidewalk, 3 feet apart, to people who'd once been family, and were now strangers connected only by theft and betrayal. "Hi," she said quietly. "Hello. Your salon is beautiful. I saw the opening announcement. I've driven past a few times but never come in. I didn't think you'd want to see me." "I don't." She flinched. "I know. I saw you through the window, and I couldn't walk away without saying something. What could you possibly say that would matter? That I'm sorry. That I think about what I did every single day. That I know there's no excuse and no apology big enough. That I destroyed the best relationship in my life because I was selfish and stupid and chose wrong. I waited. There had to be more. People don't stop you on the street after 3 years just to recite apologies. They could have sent in a text. I'm in therapy now," she continued. "Have been for 2 years. Working through a lot of stuff about my relationship with Dad, about the divorce when I was little, about how I learned to prioritize men's happiness over everything else, including basic morality. Good for you. I'm not telling you that to make excuses. I'm telling you because I want you to know that I understand now how wrong I was. Not just legally wrong, though obviously that too, but morally wrong. Fundamentally wrong. I betrayed someone who'd been nothing but good to me, and I did it to help my father, who didn't deserve that loyalty. Is that supposed to make me feel better? No. It's supposed to let you know that you weren't crazy or paranoid or wrong about what happened. Everything you thought about the betrayal, it was all true. Worse than you probably know. What does that mean? She hesitated. Can we sit? Just for 5 minutes? There's a bench right there. Every instinct told me to say no, to walk back into my salon and leave her standing on the sidewalk. But curiosity, or maybe some residual masochism, made me agree. We sat. Not close. Maximum distance on a small bench. The affair started before Dad told me, Kristen said. Before I consciously knew about it, I mean. But looking back in therapy, I think I suspected something was happening for months before he confirmed it. Little things. Changes in his behavior. Times when money went missing that I couldn't quite account for. You had access to our accounts before the affair started, yeah. You given me access when you were opening the third salon, remember? You needed help with bookkeeping and I offered. You gave me temporary access to pay bills and manage stuff while you were overwhelmed. And you kept the access after I told you I didn't need help anymore, yes? At first I told myself it was just in case you needed me again. But then she looked away, uncomfortable. Then I started using it occasionally. Small amounts. Money I needed for things I didn't want to ask for. Rent when I was short. Credit card payments when I'd overspent. I justified it by telling myself I'd pay it back, that it was basically borrowing from family, that you'd give me the money anyway if I asked. But you didn't ask. Because I knew you'd say no. Or you'd want to talk about my spending habits. Or you'd attach conditions. So I just took it and told myself it wasn't really stealing because we were family. The audacity of it was still stunning, even 3 years later. How much did you steal before the affair started? Maybe $15,000 over 2 years. Small amounts spread out so you wouldn't notice. So the total wasn't $87,000. It was over $100,000. More than I'd even calculated. When did your father tell you about Ashley? About a year after they started seeing each other. He said he'd met someone who made him happy. That things with you had gotten stale. That he still loved you but needed something more. And he asked if I'd help him keep it private until he figured out what to do. Help him how? At first, just covering for him. Lying about where he was if you asked. Creating alibis. Then he started asking for money. Said Ashley was struggling financially. That he wanted to help her but couldn't do it openly because you control the joint accounts. I didn't control them. I just monitored them because I'm financially responsible. I know. But he framed it like you were being controlling. Like he couldn't have his own money or make his own decisions. And I believed him because I wanted to. Why? Because. She was crying now. Quiet tears that she didn't bother wiping away. Because my entire childhood was about Dad being unhappy. My parents' divorce wrecked him. My mom leaving wrecked him. And then you came along and things were better for a while. But he was still unfulfilled somehow. And when he told me about Ashley, he was happy. Really, genuinely happy. And I wanted him to stay that way even though I knew it was wrong. So you chose his happiness over basic decency, yes? And over you. The woman who'd been more of a mother to me than my own mother. I chose a father who was demonstrably willing to lie and cheat and steal over a stepmother who'd never been anything but kind to me. That's what I did. And I have to live with that. We sat in silence for a minute. I didn't know what to say. Didn't know if there was anything to say. The monthly payments, I finally said. Are they difficult for you? Yes. I make decent money but not great money. $870 a month is a lot. I had to get a roommate. I can't save much. I probably won't be able to buy a house until the debt is paid off. Good. I deserve it. I know I do. But I want you to know that every month when I make that payment, I think about what I did, what I took from you, how I betrayed you. It's not just money leaving my account. It's a reminder that I destroyed the most important relationship in my life for someone who didn't deserve my loyalty. Are you still in contact with your father? No. We haven't spoken in almost 2 years. After everything fell apart, after you kicked him out and the divorce started, he blamed me. Said I'd been too obvious about helping him. That I'd ruined everything by not being more careful. When I tried to talk to him about how what he did was wrong, he got angry. Said I had no right to judge him. So I cut him off. And Ashley. I haven't seen her since about 2 months after you found out. We got in coffee together. This was before I fully understood how terrible what I'd done was, and she spent the whole time complaining about how unfair it was that Dad didn't have more money now. How she'd gotten used to a certain lifestyle, and now it was gone. She didn't care about him. She just liked what he could give her as long as someone else was paying for it. I didn't feel vindicated hearing that. Just tired. Tired of this story, these people, this entire mess. Why are you telling me all of this? Because you deserve to know. Because you spent 3 years thinking your husband and stepdaughter betrayed you, but you probably didn't realize how calculated it all was. How I knew it was wrong and did it anyway. How I made conscious choices every single day to lie to you and steal from you. You're right. That doesn't make me feel better. I'm not trying to make you feel better. I'm trying to give you the truth. You deserve at least that. I stood up. The truth is, I don't care anymore. You were right when you said I destroyed the most important relationship in your life. I was important to you and you threw me away. That's something you have to carry. But I don't have to carry you anymore. I don't have to wonder about your motivations or whether you really understood what you were doing. You did, you understood perfectly. And you did it anyway. So live with that. But don't expect me to absolve you or forgive you or make it easier for you to live with your choices. I don't expect that. I just wanted you to know that you were right about everything, and that I'm sorry. I walked back into my salon without responding, returned to my client consultation like nothing had happened. Didn't look back to see if Kristen was still sitting on that bench or if she'd left. That evening, I thought about the conversation. Tried to figure out if any of it changed how I felt. It didn't. Knowing the full scope of the betrayal, understanding that it had been even more calculated than I'd realized, didn't make it hurt more. I'd already processed the hurt, already grieved the relationship, already moved on. But it did give me something I hadn't had before, complete closure. The absolute certainty that cutting her off had been the right choice. That there was no misunderstanding to clear up, no partial truth to discover that would recontextualize everything. She'd known what she was doing. She'd chosen it anyway. And now she was living with the consequences. That was enough. I never saw Kristen again after that day. She made her monthly payments but never tried to contact me. Maybe our conversation on the bench gave her the closure she needed to. Or maybe she finally understood that some relationships, once broken, can't be repaired. My life continued improving. The Ford salon exceeded all expectations. I promoted 2 of my longtime employees to management positions, giving them ownership stakes in locations they helped build. I started mentoring young women entrepreneurs, sharing what I'd learned about building businesses and protecting yourself financially. I dated a man named David for 8 months. A good man, a veterinarian, recently widowed. We had comfortable companionship, easy conversations, compatible lifestyles. But when he started hinting at moving in together, at building something permanent, I realized I wasn't ready. Might never be ready. We ended things amicably. Stayed friends. He understood, maybe better than I did, that some people are damaged in ways that make traditional relationships difficult. I was okay with that. Preferred it, even. My life was full without a partner. My businesses, my friends, my mentees. My chosen family of employees and clients who'd become like daughters, that was enough. At 53, I'm exactly where I want to be. Successful. Independent. Healed enough to be happy but scarred enough to be careful. Rich in ways that matter and protected in ways I wasn't before. The monthly payments from Kristen will continue for 6 more years. $870, arriving like clockwork on the 1st of every month. A constant reminder that betrayal has a price. And when the debt is finally paid, when that 10-year sentence is complete, I think I'll donate the entire amount to a charity that helps victims of financial fraud by family members. Turn my pain into something that helps others. Close that chapter completely. But that's 6 years away. For now, I'm just living, building, thriving. Refusing to let what happened to me define the rest of my life. My name is Rachel. I'm 53 years old. My husband and stepdaughter stole over $100,000 from me to fund his affair with a woman who became my stepdaughter's friend. They destroyed my marriage, my trust, and my understanding of family. But they didn't destroy me. I rebuilt. I'm stronger now, smarter, more careful, more successful than I've ever been. And that's the real ending to the story. Not the betrayal. Not the theft. Not even the divorce and the criminal charges threatened and the lives ruined. The real ending is survival, recovery. Building something better from the ashes of what was destroyed. If you're watching this on Lindsay Stories, if you're dealing with your own betrayal by people you trusted, remember this. They can take your money. They can take your sense of security. They can even take the relationships you thought were real. But they can't take your ability to rebuild. They can't take your resilience. They can't take your future unless you let them. I didn't let them. And neither should you. Share this story. Subscribe to Lindsay Stories. Comment with your own experiences of survival and recovery. Because every story we tell makes it easier for the next person to find their way through their own nightmare. That's everything. My story. My warning. My proof that survival isn't just possible, it's powerful. Thank you for listening. Thank you for witnessing. Thank you for being part of the community that makes sharing these stories meaningful. That's everything. One final thing I want you to understand, if you stayed with me through this entire story. When I first discovered the betrayal, I thought the worst part was the infidelity. Finding out my husband had been cheating devastated me in ways I didn't know I could be hurt. Then I discovered the financial theft, and I thought that was the worst part. Realizing that my own money had funded the affair, that I'd unknowingly paid for my own humiliation, that felt like the deepest betrayal possible. But I was wrong. The worst part wasn't the cheating or the stealing. The worst part was the realization that to people I loved completely, who I'd sacrificed for and supported and trusted without reservation, had looked at me and decided I was expendable. That my feelings, my dignity, my financial security, none of it mattered as much as what they wanted. Mark wanted happiness with Ashley. Kristen wanted her father to be happy. And I was just collateral damage in their pursuit of those things. That's what took the longest to recover from. Not the loss of money or the end of my marriage, but the fundamental shift in how I understood relationships and trust and family. I used to believe that if you loved people well enough, if you were good enough to them, they'd protect you the way you protected them. That family meant something. That years of care and support created bonds strong enough to withstand temptation. I don't believe that anymore. I believe people show you who they are through their actions, and when they show you they're willing to hurt you for their own benefit, you should believe them. I believe protecting yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. I believe forgiveness is optional, and some betrayals are too fundamental to move past. I believe cutting toxic people out of your life, even family, is sometimes the healthiest choice you can make. These aren't bitter beliefs. They're realistic ones. Beliefs that come from experience and pain and rebuilding. I'm not the woman I was 4 years ago. That woman was more trusting, more accommodating, more willing to overlook red flags because she wanted to believe in her family. This woman, the one I am now, is harder, more guarded, less willing to make herself vulnerable. But she's also stronger, more successful, more confident in her own judgment. I don't know if that trade-off was worth it. I didn't choose it. It was forced on me by people who chose betrayal over loyalty. But I've made peace with who I've become, with the scars I carry, with the life I'm building that looks nothing like the one I planned. And if sharing my story helps even one person recognize the signs of financial betrayal earlier than I did, or give someone the courage to protect themselves instead of prioritizing keeping the peace, then maybe some good came from all of this pain. That's what I tell myself, anyway. That my suffering wasn't meaningless. That it can serve as a warning, a roadmap, a permission slip for others to protect themselves without guilt. My name is Rachel Chen. I'm 53 years old. I own 4 successful beauty salons in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm single, financially secure, and still rebuilding trust in relationships one carefully chosen person at a time. My husband and stepdaughter stole over $100,000 from me over 3 years to fund his affair. They destroyed my marriage and my sense of family. But I survived. I fought back. I built something better. And I'm here to tell you that if it happened to me, someone financially savvy, someone who owned her own business, someone who thought she was paying attention, it can happen to anyone. Watch for the signs. Monitor your accounts. Trust your instincts when something feels wrong. And never prioritize keeping the peace over protecting yourself. That's my message. That's my story. That's the hard-won wisdom I'm offering to anyone who needs it. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being part of this community. Subscribe to Lindsay Stories. Share this video. Comment with your experiences, because silence protects the people who hurt us. And we're done being silent. That's everything.